All right, we are live. Welcome to the Redpill Network podcast. This is a podcast that teaches men how to get better in every realm of human endeavor. And I'm talking money, I'm talking relationships, I'm talking fitness, personal development, and what have you. Also, quick announcement, this channel has not been monetized. So if you want to support the channel, if you want to support the show, you can do that through our link. You can do that through through the PayPal link in the description below. Every donation you make will be used to give you all a better quality show. We'll get better mic, cameras, and lightings and all of that. Also, follow Hardpillnetwork Network on all our social media handles, Facebook, Instagram. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Share this video, like it, comment your thoughts, and yeah, that is it. Also, we'll be needing a chat mode. So if you want to help us with our future shows, you can DM us on Instagram and we'll take it up from there. Will, welcome to the show. How are you doing this evening?
I'm glad to be here. Thanks so much. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm great, man. I'm great. Thank you for coming to speak to the audience, man. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right, Will, introduce yourself to the people. Let them know who you are.
Sure. I'm the host of the Renaissance of Men podcast, which has been running for about 3 years. I
Yeah.
talk about the global rebirth of masculinity, redeeming masculinity for a world that needs it. And part of redeeming masculinity is redeeming femininity as well, and building towards something that I call the great reconciliation between the sexes. I have a focus on Christianity, Christian masculinity and femininity, and I also produce content on social media and do men's mentorship and men's groups as well.
Wow, awesome, awesome. Can you also tell us about your origin, where you're from, how you were raised? Yeah.
Yeah, I first started thinking about what it means to be a man in the year 2000 when I was in college, 2001, and when I was taking a class on psychology, and that class on psychology talked about the Lord of the Rings and masculinity. And I
Mhm.
realized that I had grown up, as very thoughtful, good at school. I wasn't particularly athletic, and I wasn't into like pizza and beer and fraternities and stuff like that. That wasn't really ever my thing, and I thought that meant that something was broken about me as a man. And then I took this class in psychology and Lord of the Rings and realized there was nothing broken about me at all. That there
Mhm.
are lots of different ways that men of different kinds can come together, as we see in the Fellowship of the Ring, and when you see between Gandalf and Aragorn and Frodo and Samwise and Legolas and Gimli, you see all these different pictures of what it means to be a man, not the singular image. And that got me really thinking about what does it mean to be a man for me. And that sent me on a 20-year long journey. I went on a men's initiation in 2013, and men's initiation is very powerful, and we can talk about that. And I discovered the manosphere in 2018. And then sometime around 2020, I realized that there was a way to begin putting together all these different pieces of masculinity to tell a story, and discovered that there'd actually been a 40-year movement going all the way back to the 1980s to redeem masculinity. And what we're talking about right now in this very moment is we're living on the leading edge of it. The total process is called the Renaissance of Men. And that's what I try to show men, is that we're now part of a 40-year process to redeem masculinity. And that's what the Renaissance of Men is, and why I started my podcast.
Wow, wow, awesome, awesome. So, do you consider yourself a red pill coach?
No, no. The red pill, I consider myself a would say Christian mentor. The problem with the red pill is it tries to pretend as if it's amoral. This is just the way things are, when in fact the way things are is deeply moral, because it's designed by our Creator, Heavenly Father, God, to be a particular way for a particular reason. So it is actually deeply moral, and to detach quote unquote red pill truths from the morality that they point to is actually a way towards darkness. So I acknowledge many of the truths that the red pill claims to have discovered. It didn't discover them, but
Yeah,
I acknowledge many of the truths that the red pill claims to have discovered, but I don't believe it's amoral in nature.
yeah. So, what are some of the what are some of the things that the red pill talks about that you don't believe in?
So
I
the
mean,
red pill, yeah, for sure. The red pill By claiming that it's an amoral system, it
Mm-hmm.
enables people to behave in immoral ways.
Yeah.
So you see the red pill saying that women are driven by hypergamy, and as a result of that, if you learn to play the game the right way and create yourself to be enough of a high value man, you can sleep with as many women as you want. And you see this reflected in many of the red pill coaches. That's deeply
Wow.
immoral. That's against God's law, right? Now,
Exactly.
women indeed are hypergamous in nature. All women are like that, but that's not all there is to women, is what I often say. So, yes, it's important for men to acknowledge that men, even Jordan Peterson acknowledges that women marry up and men marry across and down. And so it's
Yeah.
important to recognize that, but you don't use it to be sexually immoral. And that's where we diverge.
Wow. Wow. Awesome. There's also a saying that if she doesn't submit to you, like in the rep you space, if she doesn't submit to you, you know, if she doesn't do the things you want her to do, that is, she's not for you. She belongs to the streets. What do you?
Um, well, she belongs. That's great. So, so from a technical perspective, she's not supposed to belong to you or the streets. She's supposed to be under the headship of her. That's great. She's supposed to be under the headship of her father, and her
Okay.
father is supposed to be there to guide
Yeah.
her in choosing a godly man. And now, godly is there's more than just being a faithful man. He has to be a good provider, a good protector.
Mm.
And from a
Yeah.
Christian perspective, he needs to be a prophet and a priest, which we can talk about what those mean in a technical sense. So she
Yeah.
doesn't, yeah, she doesn't belong to her father, but he is responsible for her, and he's supposed to pass the responsibility for her from himself to a godly man. Now, unfortunately, with our age of destroyed families and broken homes and single motherhood and stuff like that, many women don't have the covering of a father. And to
Mm.
say that she belongs to the streets, I think that there are some women that are more comfortable living single lives, and I think that there are some women that are more comfortable using men and being used by them sexually. And I think there are circumstances where that phrase applies. But I don't think that just because a woman doesn't necessarily trust you yet to be the man for her life, that she belongs to the streets.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So, coming to feminism, what would you say about feminism, and how did it
Mhm.
come about?
How did feminism come about?
Yeah.
How far back you want to go? I think feminism probably, in some sense, was rooted in the Garden of Eden, because the serpent tempted Eve by saying what? Said, "And ye shall be like gods." So the
Mm.
temptation to Eve was the power of godhood, was to be equal to God, and that's vanity, is what that is, or pride and vanity. And so that was initial, we might say, design of women that they were susceptible to. Eve was tempted by vanity, Adam was tempted by Eve. So Adam was passive, Eve was rebellious. And so
Mm.
feminism exploits that aspect of women saying, you can be like God, you can be like God, or you can be like man. And so when did feminism start? Well, it's from the very beginning, but feminism as we understand it today probably really started in earnest around the Industrial Revolution, when men were taken from the household, where they were having home-based businesses, farms, whatever, and the woman assisted her husband in producing a godly livelihood for her family. Right? It was husband and wife working together very closely. When the husband was taken out of the home and sent to work in the factories, particularly the textile mills producing fabric, the household economy is shattered. Right? The husband's gone, the children then go to school, and then the wife is left at home alone, essentially. And then the 1950s, with the automation of the household, dishwashers, vacuum cleaners, managing a household, managing a home became much easier. And so you see the
Mm.
slow evolution over time, but I think it probably really began with the Industrial Revolution, when men and women could be separated economically. Feminism as we understand it today probably began then.
Wow. So, do you think feminism is an equality movement or a man-hating movement?
Oh, it's undoubtedly a man-hating movement, and it has been from the start. They say that history is written by the winners, right?
Yeah.
Feminism won temporarily, but it won, and so as a result, it was able to erase its own history. And when you go back and you actually read the early writings of the early feminists like Margaret Sanger, Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and you go back and you read many of them, you see just how rebellious a movement it was against men, against the family, against Christianity from the very beginning. Now that has been erased, but the real smoking gun, even if you don't go back and read the original early feminists, you can read the radical feminists of the 1960s. Like Andrea Dworkin or Valerie Solanas, the Scum Manifesto, some of the things even Gloria Steinem says. And you can see the outright hatred and calls for murder and extermination of men. And no one
Yeah.
criticized these women saying that's way too extreme. Whoa, 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 let's slow this down. They were celebrated, they were promoted, they were published. And this was even in the second, quote unquote, second wave feminism when it truly turned radical. Well, if it truly
Mm.
turned radical in the 1960s, why didn't anyone stop them? Why didn't all the early first wave feminists say, no, that's too much, we don't actually agree with that? They didn't do that at all. They pushed the accelerator even harder. So it hasn't been explicitly a man-hating movement. It's been a hating God's created order movement, and men as
Mm.
the quote unquote enforcers of that. So from the very beginning, that's without doubt.
Okay, so would you say feminism is uplifting women or making them more miserable?
Oh yeah, feminism hates women most of all. I mean, because it tempts women to be like men. There's two jobs.
Mm.
There's two jobs on
Yeah.
earth: men or women, right? And that's it.
Yeah.
And so it tempts them to force them into poor copies of men, which requires a lot of testosterone and accountability, which warps them. And testosterone in high quantities is actually toxic to women's bodies, and it forces them into these stressful ways of living, isolation, aloneness, and it makes men into their enemies. And it drives them crazy until their fertility falls off a cliff somewhere between 35 and 40, and then any hope they have of being wives and mothers particularly, goes out the window, and then they're forced to look at the next 40 plus years of their life being alone. It destroys women. It destroys them because it tempts them with vanity. And when you pursue sin, ultimately it comes back on you, and you end up persecuting yourself. So I think it, as much as it hates men, it's targeted directly to exploit women and destroy them in order to destroy civilization. And it's done a pretty good job. I'll give it that much.
Yeah, feminism is really, really doing crazy harm to society. So, and especially men. So, do you think so, feminism is hurting men and making them weak?
I don't think I mean, yes is the short answer to that question, but it's not direct. I think the assault on men, if you go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/@renofmen, you'll see a video called What is the Renaissance? If you subscribe, it'll show up at first. And in that video, in the first 10 or so minutes, I talk about the war on masculinity, which has been going on for about 150 years. And so feminism isn't what weakened men, period. What began the process first, again, was the Industrial Revolution, men being taken out of the home. And then you had two world wars where 35 million men died in Europe and
Mm.
Asia. And 35, these were, and the men who went off to fight in World War I and II, they were the strongest, the swiftest, the smartest, the best of the best men. And they
Yeah.
were essentially destroyed in industrialized warfare. And that elimination of those strong men has rippled forward in time through, we might say, our genetic lines. And so that was really what began it. And then you have all these men that are broken and angry, suffering from what we know as post-traumatic stress. They didn't have a word for it back then. Those are the men that came home in the 1950s. And they were so
Mm.
shattered by what they'd seen in war that the full court press of media manipulation that began in the 1960s, they had no ability to push back, right?
Yeah.
And then to make things worse, the strong, capable men of the 1960s, they went off and were destroyed in Vietnam through drugs and war. And so you've had this continual weakening of particularly in the West, of men through warfare. And that has made their minds and hearts and bodies very soft and made them unable to resist the aggressive attack of feminism. So is feminism the only factor? No. Is it a major factor? Yes.
Yeah. Wow. So what can be done, to correct this before it is too late? Like, is there any measure that can be taken to correct this, or are we doomed?
I I hope not. I think the most important thing, that can be done is women absolutely need to wake up to their
Yeah.
call to be first wives and then mothers. They
Mm,
have to wake up to that. Because I sent a tweet, I did a tweet a couple weeks ago where I try to explain this to women. I said, look, feminism failed spectacularly. If the transgender LGBT thing has done anything, it's proved how ridiculous feminism is. Leah Thomas, I can't even say the name, Leah Thomas, the swimmer, and all that stuff has shown that feminism, is targeted to destroy women. And I think a lot of normal people are waking up, and there's a rising masculine energy that's been happening for the past few years, and that's not going to be stopped. Now the risk is that it will overcorrect. The risk is that it will go too hard in the opposite direction. And what I tell women is like, look, this is happening, so you have
yeah.
three choices. You can find a godly man to submit to, you can become a ward of the state, or you can become property of a wannabe warlord. Those are your three choices. Now, my hope is that women will wake up to the idea of being wives and mothers and surrender and lay down their arms and come back into reconciliation with men. They have to voluntarily do that. They have to feel within their hearts, within their souls, that they're called to be in reconciliation with men and let go of everything that feminism has taught them, both their mothers and their fathers. They have to let that go. If they don't, um, the consequences will be significant. Now, as men, our responsibility, and we can't force a change of heart in women. We can't force it. As men, our responsibility is to grow and become as godly, strong, and capable providers as we can, to make it easier for them. Not to go out and round them up in a bag, like put them in a bag and drag them off to our cave, right? Like, I understand that there's like, maybe we need it's not going to work. By becoming the best men that we can be, we attract the right woman to us. And if more men do that, we can make it easier for women to do that. And that is the great reconciliation. We redeem masculinity, that creates the space to redeem femininity, and then the two come back together in the great reconciliation. That's my best plan, best answer for how we can fix this.
Yeah. So you mentioned to correct this. Women have to first become wife, then
Yeah.
mothers, right?
Yeah.
So how do they go about this?
Well, the reason why I say that women have to become wives and then mothers is that a lot of women, as I've discovered lately, they're very interested in taking care of, because they're made this way. They're very interested in taking care of perfect, snuggly, cuddly little babies, right? That's part of them. What they seem less interested in is taking care of tall, smelly, stinky, grumpy men, as we can be
Mm,
from time to time. We're men.
yeah.
We're not at all like women. And so the
Yeah.
notion of taking care of a man and of an adult male, being a helper to him, being a support to him, loving and caring for him despite his imperfections, the desire to do that, not the desire to accept, it's just okay, I'll just do it. It's like, no, I love men and I accept that I'm not a perfect peach either, and yet men still love me. So they have to come
Mm,
back into reconciliation with a desire to be a wife. And then through that godly union of acceptance of each other and love for each other's flaws, that is the foundation that you have children from. But until you get there, if you just get married just to have kids, then the cradle that holds your child will be frayed, because you don't actually want to be around your husband. You don't like that, but you'll tolerate him so you can have a kid. That's not how that works. You're supposed to love
sure.
each other almost because of each other's flaws, because your flaws make you a well-rounded person, make you a whole real person, not a fictional character. So women will often say, I put up with my husband. Well, if a man can love you for your flaws, can you love a man for his? And if you two
Mm,
can do that, that's real love. If you've ever met two people that are really in love and have had a long-term relationship, older people, right, 60s, 70s, that have been together for decades, they'll say like, yeah, my husband has flaws, or yeah, my wife has flaws. I love her for her flaws. That's how it's meant
Mm,
to be. And that, if we can achieve that, because and not have the fairy tale fantasy Disney romance, but if we can
yeah.
achieve that for each other, we can have a solid ground to raise children in. And that will require women saying, I am capable of loving a man for his flaws, because my whole life tells me not to engage with men. Be single, live your best life, girl, jump from man to man, and never have to encounter any friction. Everything in culture incentivizes women towards that. They have to choose another path and choose one man and love him for his flaws and be loved for her flaws. It's a profound gift of humility, and I believe women can do it. That's why I'm not a red pill coach, is because I believe that.
Awesome, awesome. Now, coming to the woke culture, how would you define
How,
wokeness?
sorry, how do I define wokeness? Is that the question?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, Wokeness sees victimhood everywhere. Wokeness
Yeah,
is a way of wokeness is a way of living that looks around and sees that everyone and everything in my life is persecuting me because of my
exactly.
identity. And for this reason, it's possible. eh, Wokeness, technically defined, is that's true for everyone who isn't white. They see
Mm,
themselves as being persecuted by people and systems, right? And that's wokeness. Like, whether it be I'm persecuted by history, or I'm persecuted by the government, or I'm persecuted by, institutional racism. That's wokeness technically defined. But I think it's also possible for white people to also be their own form of woke and to see themselves as being persecuted and being victims as well, right? I think there's also a component of that, but that's another conversation. Wokeness, technically defined, though, is to see yourself an outsider, some sort of minority in the various ways that we consider that word, and to see yourself as being persecuted by the world on behalf of white people, right? Straight white males, right? That's
yeah.
wokeness. And so that's the technical definition of wokeness. And then you can flip it around the other way as well.
So why do you think people are so soft and easily offended these days? Over little and irrelevant stuffs.
Why are people so soft these days?
Yeah.
Because life is easy. I mean,
Mm,
I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. It's like 115 degrees Fahrenheit outside, but it's like 75 in my apartment, right? I'm sitting in a comfortable chair. I just went to
yeah.
the grocery store and I got a whole bunch of really good food that I'm going to make. I didn't have to hunt it. I don't have to be exposed to any discomfort if I don't want to be. And so now I happen to like exposing myself to voluntary hardship, exercising, restricting calories, reading the
Yeah.
Bible, doing things that require discipline. But most people don't have the desire to expose themselves to voluntary discomfort. And so if you never expose yourself to anything hard, you'll become soft. And so,
Sure.
and there's lots of things in culture that exploit our softness and take advantage of that and cultivate our softness so they can squeeze more money out of us. But I would say that's why.
What are the things that makes people soft? Like you get me?
Sorry, say that again.
I said, yeah, yeah, yeah. You said some things cultivate people to become soft. Yeah. So what are those things?
What are the things that make people soft?
Yeah. Oh, okay. You
I
just you just,
mean,
you just said
I think our choices make us soft. I mean, our modern society, it's a glorious achievement of civilization that we've done. It really, really is. Like, and I think it's very easy to get very black pilled about all these things and look at civilization through a very dark lens. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the things that you see are untrue, but the judgment can often take hold of our minds. We've achieved, particularly in the West and America and in Europe as well, in many ways, we've achieved something truly incredible in terms of civilization. And we can choose to experience that in such a way that makes us weak, or we can choose to experience it in such a way that makes us strong. So, what makes us soft? First, I think our parents can really do a bad job of making things too easy for us as kids. So we come into adulthood and aren't really prepared with making hard decisions and don't know how or see any reason to. So I think a lot of it can come down to parenting, setting a trajectory. But then when we
mm,
become adults and we become responsible for our decisions, then our decisions are what makes us soft. Nothing comes in and actually starts massaging us in our sleep, turning us into soft little people, right? We fail to make hard decisions. We fail to do the right thing for the right reasons. We fail to choose the hard thing, and you run that out over a lifetime, and it ends up making you soft. And so what that means is you can take responsibility, and you can make yourself much more capable if you're willing to pay the price, which is one of the things I try to guide men to do.
Awesome. So, one of the tenets of woke culture is that your feelings matters more than truth. So, what do you have to say about that?
That's a fundamentally feminine way of relating to reality, and I don't mean that as a criticism, because
Mm,
men relate to reality via our minds and our bodies, right?
yeah.
That's how men relate to reality. Women relate to reality through their feelings and their intuition, right? And so when you put a man together who interacts with reality with his mind and his body, and a woman who interacts with feeling and intuition, you have a fantastic amount of data you can take in as a couple. You can really, like a properly aligned man and woman who are taking in information about reality, relating in the ways that they're designed to, are very, very powerful. But instead, what we've done is we've taken the feminine way of relating to reality and we've turned it up to 11 and given it to men. And men should not be relating to reality via their feelings and their intuitions. A, because they're not as good at it, right? And B, because it makes us weak, because it makes us afraid to encounter reality. Because we will take in often bad information with our feelings and intuitions. And when you turn up women's sensitivity to 11, they'll get a lot of noise in their signal as well. So when we believe that we have this intuitive knowing of reality and are afraid to look at data and facts and information and the actual reality on the ground, everything goes haywire, because you have women taking in a whole bunch of noise and men taking in bad data, and no one can make bad decisions anymore. So we need men to be very rational, very strong in mind and body, to process reality that way, to complement it with feeling and intuition, and then we can begin healing society. But unfortunately, with women's feeling and intuition turned up to 11, as they begin to get around men who are very strong and rational, because they'll be taking in noise, they react to men being strong right now because they haven't been around it before. So that causes many women to freak out. So you got to work on that, ladies. I don't know what to tell you.
All right, so guys, I think we have 6 people watching us now. If you have your questions, you can drop them in the comment section. Then I will read them out later for Will to help us answer them. So now coming to the dating, coming to date, modern dating. What's your opinion on modern dating?
It's a mess. It's a mess.
No
You know, it's
doubt, no
something.
doubt.
It's something I'm navigating right now, and I think a big problem is in the notion of dating, the word itself. Dating is something that's new to human history. You know, like prior to, I don't know, 1950, it wasn't like people tried on a bunch of other folks to, a bunch of men tried on a bunch of women to see if they fit, right? It's like, do I like this one? Do I like this one? Do I like this one? No, it didn't work that way. It was like my grandparents, like, it's like they would walk down the street at age 18 and they would sneeze and look at each other and be like, oh, hey, you want to get married? And then they get married. And that was it, right? There was no dating. And so I think the whole idea of I'm going to try a bunch of people until I find the right one disincentivizes people to take it seriously. Instead of, they're not looking for a mate, they're looking for a date. I'm going to write that one down. They're not looking for a mate. We should be looking for mates. So the whole notion of dating is flawed. I like courtship much better as an idea where it's like, okay, I'm only going to spend time with you as a man. First, I'm going to talk to your father if I can, and I'm going to get his permission to court you. So you've already vetted me at the front door, so I'm not going to waste your daughter's time. That's one. And then two, I'm only going to talk to this woman unless I think I want to make her my wife, and I'm not going to like just trying to mess around with her, sleep together or whatever. But we're so far from that. The incentives are all wrong, and everything is such a mess. And it's just going to take men and women to say, this is not working for either of us. We need to try something different.
Yeah. So how has the dating market evolved in today's day and age? Do you think it has evolved, or do you think it is ruined?
It hasn't evolved, it's devolved, right? I mean, I'm on a secular dating site called Hinge, and I would imagine that these are probably some of the most or more desirable women on the online dating market. And my impression of them, many of them are very fit, they're very successful, but it doesn't strike me that they're interested in being wives. Maybe they're
Mm,
interested in dating for a while. I don't know how
yeah.
casual encounters are looking for. It's hard to tell, but I don't see them being. I heard once that a woman is either a door or a wall, right?
Mm,
And so I don't look at these women and see them being doors. I don't see them being like, I'm a doorway to a better way of being. It's like they seem very walled, and that's a shame. And there's many reasons for that, I'm sure. But for a man who's looking to make a woman his wife, who wants to lead a traditional life with her and provide for her and treasure her, to see the way these women, at least the way that they present themselves, is not soft and accepting. It's very hard and celebrating their own accomplishments. Many of them are very fit. They don't have feminine bodies. They have very like fit, muscular bodies, right? And they're showing it off. It's an accomplishment. Look, I get it. Praise God for women who take care of their bodies and physiques today, for sure. And there's a way in which it could come off as being very defensive in a sense, like I'm going to be a man and find a man who wants to be with a man, versus like,
mm,
hey, I'm looking for, I'm looking to be someone's wife, and I know what that means. I don't see a lot of that, and that's a tragedy.
wow, that's so sad. So, what do you
Mm.
think? What has changed in what women want these days when it comes to
What is?
dating and relationships? Yeah, what has changed, like um, from then and now?
I mean, I think in prior generations, again, there wasn't. People didn't sleep together before they got
Mm,
married, right? They didn't
true.
have the pill. They didn't have the ability to enjoy one of God's gifts to marriage, quote unquote, safely without having kids, right? Or without, God forbid, diseases or anything like that. And so
Yeah.
they had to be much more thoughtful and thorough about who they chose, because do I want to have kids with this person? And now with birth control and abortion, people, especially women, don't have to be as thoughtful about it. Neither do men, for that matter. And so this wonderful gift of sexual union is cheapened and turned into something disposable. And so the reasons to get married like seem so low. Like, why would I want to
Mm,
spend my life with one person when I can sleep with a bunch of other people? Why would I want to have kids? Kids are so expensive. Why would I want to give up my great lifestyle? And
mm,
the world did not think that way at all. It never used to think that way. And it's only been the past 2 or 3 generations where it's been possible. And then you add in like dating apps that hyper accelerated everything. I think history will look back on Tinder and be like, that was a catastrophically bad idea. Um, and so
true.
that's
Yeah.
that's where we're at now.
How would you define, courtship and dating? Like, what are the difference? Can you differentiate both of them?
Hmm. So dating, um, dating is very casual. Dating is,
Mm,
I'm going to spend a bunch of time with this person, days, months, whatever, and see if I like them. And if I don't like them, I'm going to throw them away and find somebody else. Right? It turns human companionship and what we might call coupling into just a thing that you try and do until you find the right person for you. Courtship is, I'm actively going to investigate whether you are the person that I would like to spend my life with, and that goes both ways. Meaning, a man talks to a woman's father, hopefully he's still around, or the men in her life, and says,
yeah.
take a look at me and assess who I am. Am I worth speaking to this woman? Yes, you seem like a good guy. But then you're not falling into bed right away. You're actually making a lifelong decision. It's like, is this someone that I want to and can spend my life with? And courtship takes it much more seriously. And so you have to make sure to be like, okay, am I just attracted to this person because of their surface characteristics, or do I actually care about who they are? Do I actually want to spend my life with this person? As opposed to like, I'll use them, allow them to use me, and if it doesn't work out, no big deal. Like, what a waste. People spend years dating, they spend between
Yeah.
22 and 30, 35 dating constantly. And until 35, they don't even think about settling down. And by then, they're hurt, they're angry, men and women, right? They've been through so many different bad experiences. Their hearts are guarded and they're cynical. Dating
Hmm.
destroys marriage. Courtship can renew marriage, but there's a cost, and the cost is you don't get to have as much premarital sex. Boo-hoo.
So, what are the biggest mistakes men make when it comes to picking a wife or a woman?
Mm-hmm. Many of them. Um, I think the biggest mistake that men are likely to make is to not look past surface appearances. And
Hmm.
men are attracted to beauty. We're hyper visual. Men get criticized for being superficial. We're not. We're hyper visual. We take in a lot of information with our eyes. So physical beauty is very important to us. But we often get taken with physical beauty and forget or aren't taught how to look more deeply into who the woman is, the aspects of her character that probably won't change, right? Like, as there are things about us that don't change. We grow and mature as men for sure, but there are some things about people that just don't change, right? Or outside of sanctification in Christ don't change. Let's put it that way. But a lot of men, they will look past the surface appearances, and that is a big mistake that men make. With this woman, like, okay, she's great to look at. Maybe she's accomplished or she has this way about her that's just magical. Okay, but when she's 45 or when you're both 50, right, and the magic has worn off, is this a woman who has enough care and love within her heart to support you through hard times? Is this a
Yeah.
woman of character? Does she have depth? Can you guys really support a conversation with each other? Are you interested in parallel or similar things? Who is she as a person past the surface appearances? Men easily fall prey to that. And
That's
I think
very
some
true.
men, I think on the other side, I think some men don't. Well, it's tough to say. I think some men don't think about it enough because there is a way in which a woman's appearance can signal deeper character issues that men overlook. So let's put it that's being too focused on surface appearances in the wrong way and not focused enough in the wrong way. That's the easiest trap that men fall into.
And do you think that is why marriages are failing these days? Men are not men are looking past this. I mean, men are not looking past the surface, and women too are also not looking deep into the kind of man she's getting into. Do you think that is why marriage is failing these days?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think that's part of it. I think I as I think through your question, one of the reasons that I think marriages do fail is, yes, men don't pay enough attention to the character of their wife, and they find over time that this is not a woman who's loving and giving, who doesn't have that move in her heart, and so men look for attention and care and tenderness outside the marriage. I don't think. I think a very small percentage of men who cheat do it just out of some sort of sexual charge. Like, it's like, I don't think it's that they need to get laid. I think they're actually looking for like real companionship and tenderness like they felt at the start of their relationship. I think that's a big component of it that isn't acknowledged. Men are just framed as horn dogs who can't keep it in their pants, and I think it's much deeper than that. But I do think that could be a big reason for male infidelity, and I think if you talk to therapists, they'll tell you that's a big reason. That's a big reason why, and women have reasons for cheating as well. And I think the reason why women cheat is because a man lets himself go and stops being the energetic pursuer, confident man leading that he started as, that attracted her in the first place. And so she goes looking for that energy, right? And she goes looking for that kind of man. And so these are the ways that we fail each other, and it goes both ways. But part of it is because we don't know how to make these decisions anymore. We don't know how to call people. We don't know how to call ourselves or others to a higher standard. And so we watch them fall and then we punish them for it instead of supporting each other to grow and knowing what that means in the first place.
Wow. So when it comes to chasing, getting a partner, who should do the chasing? Is it the man or the woman? But
Um, I don't like the term chasing.
okay.
Be, yeah, just because chasing implies that someone's running away, right? And I think chasing someone who's running away puts one person in power and the other person in what we call supplication. I don't think it's the right way of thinking about it. I like a friend of mine. He wrote a book called Love is a Hunt. His name is Jer, and he's on Twitter. And Love is a Hunt is a great book. It's not necessarily a Christian book, but I like the way that he frames it. That it's hunting, meaning that you're pursuing and you're watching the woman and you're learning her, and you're very slowly getting to a position, where you can win her heart. And I think that's a better way of thinking about it. And that turns it into more of like a game. And you see this in the animal kingdom. When you see the courtship dances or mating dances that many species do, that's what it is. It's like it's hunting for not her heart necessarily, but it's this kind of dance that is glorious and set up in the right way. And so they're not chasing. You don't see animals running down and jumping on top of. You see these displays of strength, and you see these displays of beauty and power to win over the female, right? And I think that from a human perspective, we don't have big plumage or feathers or anything like that. So our technique is a little different. But watching a woman, seeing what is valuable to her, and then learning how to display it, how to present it in a way that, for lack of a better word, seduces her or draws her in. The hunting is a better way of thinking about it, hunting, quote unquote. And I think that's a much more powerful way than pursuing. And I think the man should do that, but the woman has to be receptive to it. She has to be a partner in the dance. She has to do her little move. Like, you can watch old movies and you see women like drop a handkerchief to catch the guy's attention, to let her know that, let him know, right? And so women have to participate in this and not just kind of hang back with their arms folded. They have to say, like, yeah, I'm interested, and pay and do the dance. That's how we're designed to be. And so it requires both. And so that's how I think about it.
There's this verse in Proverbs that says men should not chase after women. So what do you think? What can you explain it? Can you explain what that verse says?
Yeah, is it the verse that says, "Do not give your strength to women"? Is it that one?
Yeah.
So I can explain it conceptually. So I think what that means is a man has the things that he's supposed to be doing during the day. He's supposed to provide, he's supposed to protect, right? Adam in the garden was commanded to cultivate and protect the garden. So provide and protect from the very beginning. And so when a man takes his vital strength, right, that he's supposed to be using to do those things, and gives it to a woman, and gives her the energy that he's supposed to be using for his duties, and you see this when a lot of guys fall in love. They get this huge rush of endorphins, and then maybe they're walking on cloud nine, and they're not paying attention to work, or they're not taking care of things too much, or maybe they let themselves go because they're having too much chocolate and cake at meals or whatever. It's that slow process of giving yourself away to a woman, and that never works out well in the end. It always ends up making you weaker when the woman is attracted to strength. So that's what that proverb is about, is make sure to maintain the necessary strength that you need to take care of the things in your everyday life.
Okay, I got it now. I got it. So now, these days, men are like scared to approach women. So
Mhm.
why do you think men are struggling with approaching women?
I think there's a bunch of reasons for that. I think one reason is because they don't know how, they don't know why. They are attracted to someone's surface visual characteristics, and so they don't know how to see past that to the person underneath, and so they get caught up at the experience of the feminine, like, oh, what's that? I think a lot of women are less agreeable towards men approaching them today, unless you're a particular kind of man. And I think there are some actual incentives set up where if a woman doesn't like a man who approaches him, she can punish him legally, she can punish him financially, right? And so, like, unless you're, Mr. Mega King Chad, with a 1,000% batting average, the average guy's like, well, if she freaks out and screams, in the grocery store, like, I don't want that to happen. So I think that there's a lot of reasons why.
Okay, so now when it comes to building lasting attraction with your partner, how do men and women go about that?
Building lasting attraction.
Yeah.
I think part of the responsibility to build lasting attraction is to give what you hope to get, right? So if you want to have lasting attraction to your partner, and you want them to be lastingly attractive to you, you should work to be lastingly attractive to them. Treat others as we want to be treated, right? I think that's a big part of it. But I think it's also really necessary today to align on that first. So for me, being in the dating pool, right? I have a number of requirements. I recommend everyone go to Alison Armstrong's website, AlisonArmstrong.com, and you can buy her course, Own Your Ultimatums is what it's called. And in that course, she talks about requirements. These are the things that I require in relationship. And I require food, air, and water to live. I require these things in relation. It's not a question of deserve or want. It's like I require them. And so I require a woman who comes pre-built in with a health and fitness routine. She already takes care of her body. That's already what she does. And she does it for herself. I require that because I do that for myself. I sweat 6 or 7 days a week, right? I watch what I eat. And so I require that in a partner. And so I'm upfront about that. And so if a woman doesn't want to meet that requirement, that's fine. There's no judgment in that, but I require that. And I think couples need to be more honest about that, what their requirements are. But don't require something from someone you don't already require from yourself, because otherwise you're a hypocrite. I require you to be this way, but I don't require that for myself. That's dumb. So the things that we require are usually the things that we required from ourselves first. And once we know what those things are, then we can more credibly ask for them from our partner. So you guys can look as a couple however you want, but if you require your partner to look a certain way, make sure you're aligned on that up front. Don't figure it out down the line, especially if you're married.
Just like in the Redpill community, they want the woman to be chaste, to be whole, but they want to go about sleeping with different women. It's hypocrisy to me, for real.
Yes.
So what are the red flags that you should be aware of when trying to date a woman?
The biggest one that I've been thinking of lately is her relationship to social media. How many of her social media posts, particularly on Instagram, are photos of her or her face versus are things that she creates? If I see a woman who her Instagram is primarily photographs of her, there's a problem with vanity there, right? As there would be, as I feel with men who do the same thing, right? It's like, are you soliciting attention? Look, if she has a private profile and she has 10 followers and she posts photos and they're all her friends, that's one thing. But if you have like hundreds or thousands of followers and you're posting, perfectly posed, kind of things, lit and photoshopped and stuff like that, I would say unless you're some sort of content creator professionally, which is a thing, then that's something that I look at. That is a red flag. That's not a deal. Excuse me. It's not a deal breaker, but it's something to be sensitive to, because if she's used to soliciting attention from people online, that's once she gets attention from you, she might not stop soliciting that attention online. Same for men. I'm getting some feedback, by the way, some like a buzzing sound.
From me?
I think so.
I don't know. I'm not. It's fine on my end.
Okay.
I used to get
Yeah,
the feedback.
it's fine. It might be just a speaker vibrating against something. It sounds like my voice is causing it, but it's no big deal. Maybe no one else can hear it, but I've got these nice headphones on.
Okay. I don't know. It's even freezed here. Like the stream is freezed. Like I can't see you moving.
Okay.
Let's just continue.
Okay.
So so what are the traits? We've talked about the red flags. What are the traits to look out for? In a woman before going into a relationship with her.
Hmm. What are some positive traits to look for?
Yeah.
I mean, for me, there's a softness, there's a welcomingness, right? Like a lot of women today can have a very hard edge, and there's it can because if they're on their own, they have to harden against the world. And so, a woman who takes time to cultivate her softness, to welcome men in that way, and to signal it. Like I said, a woman is either she's either a wall or a door. And for a woman, and what does that mean? Um, I'm presuming you're still. So a woman who's a wall has that hard edge. A woman who's a door offers the promise of something more, like something genuine, something real. Like together we'll walk through this door. I look for that. It's hard to find. It's hard to find, but I'm blessed to know lots of women that are moving in that direction. If you're looking for something a little bit more concrete, a real desire, and for any of the women listening, the real thing, if you mean it, the real thing that you can do to signal a giant green flag is be honest. If you want to be a wife, say those words. I want to be someone's wife. And if you mean it, don't lie about it. If you mean it, because I think
Okay.
because just saying that you want to be a mother, yeah, sure, I get it. Yes, you're designed to be a mother, but you have to want to be a wife.
Okay. I think we're done for now. Like it was a great show. So where can the people find you, and what are your last thoughts?
Yeah, you can find me at you can go to renofmen.com/links, and that's Ren of Men is RENOFMEN, like Renaissance of Men, but shorter, renofmen.com/links, and from there you can get to my podcast and my YouTube and all my social media profiles and my email list as well. My final thoughts are: I'm very hopeful. I think people are going to make it, but we have to stay the course, and we have to be committed to a positive vision between men and women. And the only place to find that positive vision is in God's law and in Christ. That's the
Yeah.
real foundation that we can stand on forever. So I call people to repentance and faith in Christ, because that way lies true reconciliation between men and women for real, and then we can rebuild society.
Amen. Christ is King.
Amen.
Okay, guys. So if you want to reach out to Will, you can check the description. I put his link there. It's the link to his Instagram is also there. And if you don't want to go through the link, you can just go on Instagram and search Ren of Men, RENOFMEN, and you'll find him there. Okay. You do mentorship, right? You do one-on-one coaching too, right?
Yes, actually, I'm really glad that you mentioned that. I just today launched a new program, an online men's group called the Council. And you can go to renofmen.com/council to join that group, which features my daily Bible study audio notes, the ability to tune in live to my podcasts as I record them, as well as a bunch of other bonuses. So you can find more about that program by going to renofmen.com/council, COUNCI, council.
All right, guys, you heard him. So do well to check out the link and hear more from him, and see what he's doing for men and for his community. All right, so this will be the end of the show. I'll see you guys on Wednesday, and have a wonderful night. Peace. Have a wonderful night,
Peace.
Will, for coming.
Thank you.
Why is this thing not ending?
Cool. I can't hear you.